Yeah, I thought our Kansas State game was one of the best we've had in quite a while in terms of our guys driving who we want to be. Obviously had a couple real aggressive, soul-searching days of practice after the Oklahoma game, and particularly coming out of halftime and in halftime itself, the way that our guys drove and communicated with each other about who we want to be and how we want to play, possession by possession, really was a difference for us in that game. And again, that player-driven component, it makes all the difference. I really feel like that's the biggest key for us, is creating that as a staff. But Matt, Courtney, Jace, guys really leading the way in terms of saying, hey, this is who we're going to be and we'll accept nothing less.
Was that kind of the blueprint you'd like to grab hold of, is your guards basically outplay the other team's guards, and then just a total commitment to defense as a team?
Yeah, I mean, defense, we say all the time with our guys, defense has to be our identity, our anchor. You look around this league, all the best teams have that in common. You look around the country. So the defensive side of the ball is got to be where you start. Obviously, you're typically not going to hold a team scoreless for 7-8 minutes, but I think what we did well during that stretch early in the second half was we just flew around. We played with great activity. We helped each other, got our hands on the basketball. These are all things that, we want to be about on a consistent basis. We got our deflection goal for the game. Again, that typically corresponds with winning. So, getting our guys to really own that, hey, this is who we have to be first and foremost. The Kansas State game, from an offensive standpoint, we had stretches of the game where we really, really scored, played well. We had about a 6 or 7 minute stretch where we did not. So the way you weather that is with your defense, and I think our older guys are gaining a better ownership of that, but we're not all the way there yet. We have to get to the point where that's who we are all the time.
You mentioned those days after the Oklahoma game. You guys were doing that soul searching. You said, what did you see from them during those days that encouraged you? Because that Kansas State game was there for the taking for you guys, but it was also there for you guys to lose. So.
It was, and the other team wants to win too, and our guys deserve a lot of credit for, just showing a level of fight and commitment to what we need to do. Kansas State is a team that they make the game tough, but what I saw in practice, to put it in, sum it into one word, is humility. It's something that typically, you work at and you try to promote in guys on the front end, but sometimes it does take challenging outcomes or challenging results to create that. And for guys to understand, really, there's no other way to go do what we want to do other than, following this process. I thought Jace Febris specifically, just the look on his face when we walked into the locker room the next day after Oklahoma was, hey, I want to be better. I need to be better for our team. I want our team to do better. And I thought there were several guys that took that approach. We've been emphasizing so much to our guys over the past, several weeks, the importance of playing with a level of fight and aggressiveness. But what comes as a precursor even to that is playing for Texas, and having a cause of, what you're going after as a group that's larger than yourself. That sometimes when you lose sight of that, that can get in the way of some of the other details that go into being successful.
That's why it seems like it's so ironic that y'all are playing Oklahoma State in Stillwater again at this point in the year, just like last season. It seems like that alone gives you plenty of build-up for Wednesday of how they reacted in Stillwater.
Well, our guys should definitely learn, quite a bit from that game, that the guys that played in that game last year. But I think more importantly, it's about this year's team, and it's about where we are coming off of this past week, where we want to be, the steps that we need to take as a group, and having a relentless pursuit of all the details that go into winning. And we made a really big point of emphasis as a coaching staff going into the Kansas State game to simplify for our guys. So, if you want to, as a coach, you can come up with 1,000 things that go into winning, and there are. I mean, there's a lot of little details. But sometimes that number, when it's big, can be things get lost, And so for our guys, we made it really, really simple for the Kansas State game, and I think they grabbed hold of that really well. Courtney Ramey really led the way with just his spirit and his approach, guarding their best player, their leading scorer, and then I thought Matt was terrific as well.
But do you think it crystallizes for them that the one point you've been hammering so hard on is defensive intensity?
Yep.
And for the second half, how that leads to transition and it leads to offense, and just they finally, this is what it is, what you want.
Well, you always want to create an epiphany in the mind of your guys. What I've learned in coaching is sometimes you want that capital E epiphany, but sometimes there's lowercase e, and then you need another one later on. But I think, our job as coaches obviously is to aggressively reward the things that we want and, penalize and take away from, guys that are doing the things we don't want. And, what that requires is having a core group of guys that you can count on. And obviously we've shifted, our lineup. We've shifted some rotations. We've trying to find, who will go out there and do the right things. And I thought the Kansas State game was a step in the right direction for us. The things that we challenged our guys to do, for the most part, they did. We weren't perfect. A big key is not getting deflated when a play doesn't go your way, and understanding that you still can go make the next play. And even on that play, we had a couple plays during that stretch where they didn't score, where we, messed up a coverage or got two on the ball. We just rotated. At one point, Jace blocked a shot of a 6'10" guy. So, that's how you want to play. You want to fly around and continue to play hard for each other. And I think, again, when you have that common cause, that connectivity, and you're able to lose yourself in the fight, that gives you the best chance.
Through your conference games, what do you think the team's done best, and what do you think the team has done worse through those 3 games? Or do you need to build on?
Well, I think, the games have been very, very different. I think 2 out of the 3 games we've played, really well defensively for the most part. Certainly areas where we need to get better. I think in general, continuing to improve on rebounding is a huge key. I think from the 3-point line, obviously it goes without saying, you want to shoot a high percentage. The key there, I think, for us, what I've learned about our team, because we do have good shooters, is taking the right shots. Good shooters are better shooters when they take the right shots. They're not as good shooters when they don't take the right shots. So that'll be a big key on Wednesday against Oklahoma State. They do a great job flying around, really contesting shots, multiple efforts. And, we want to take good ones, but at the same time, if a guy's flying at you, you got to make a good decision and attack to close out and then create a play for the next guy. Aggressiveness is something that when we have moved and cut with aggressiveness on the offensive end, we've been able to create good shots. Haven't always gone in, but we've been able to create those when we cut, and we always tell our guys, cut violently on the offensive end. Getting the ball in the paint as much as we can, getting the ball into Jericho. He wasn't quite as effective of getting catches in our last game. Kansas State had a lot to do with that. But it is a point of emphasis. We're actually running way more than we were earlier in the year to get him the ball, get him touches. And I think that's something that can be successful for us.
When you have a second half like you had against Kansas State, coming off of 2 losses, do you just take that film and just play it on loop, or do you find every little thing to say, hey, this is, to try to, as much as you can, hammer home that this is what it's got to look like?
Yes. We actually, you should be a coach. As we practice in about an hour, and that's the first thing that we'll do. There's a stretch in the game actually that started at the end of the first half and went about 8 minutes into the second half that we're going to show our guys and really, really emphasize this is what it needs to look like in this situation. Here's what we need to carry over and do more in a lot of different areas, offensively and defensively. So we'll spend a lot of time on that. There's also a lot of stuff to learn, that we can do better from that game.
Coach, it seems like Oklahoma State's kind of struggled offensively. Of course, they play a really good defensive team in West Virginia, but What do you think it's going to take to keep them from having a breakout game win?
Well, I think what they do best is transition. We've got to do a great job playing transition defense. That starts with how we play offense, and then defending the three-point line. Teams have done a really good job of late, making sure they get a high hand on their really good shooters. I mean, they have a lot of those same guys back that made a lot of threes last year against us and against a lot of teams. So those are the two biggest keys. And then again, as I mentioned earlier, I think for us it's about having a relentless pursuit of, imposing our will on the game, in a lot of different ways. And, as coaches over the next couple of days, we'll make sure we boil that down and make it very simple for our guys how to do that. And then when our guys drive that for our team, that will create success.
It feels like the last few weeks or a few games for Andrew have been a struggle offensively. Are you sensing physical fatigue, mental fatigue? Is it still him trying to really work back into full game shape?
Yeah. I mean, Andrew wants to be good as much or more than any player I've ever coached, and he wants to help his team. He does sometimes put pressure on himself to do those things. And, as a coach, you want to see a player go out there and have success, especially a guy like him that's been through all the things he's been through and also that's put in so much work on his body and on his game. We've talked about all year long that, he just got it done with his last treatment in September. He's not necessarily all the way back physically to, where he was, and there's no real timetable that he or anyone can put on that. First and foremost, we're really, really grateful that he's back out there playing. We do believe, and I know deep down Andrew believes that, he can go make a lot of really good plays. And I thought in the Kansas State game, he really helped us on the defensive end. He played with an aggressiveness there. We keep track of what we call points allowed. He only had 5 points allowed the whole game. So we've encouraged him to start on that end. Now, we all know, Andrew, like a lot of really good scorers, evaluates himself, a lot of ways on the offensive end. We want him to take good shots. If he takes good shots, we feel like he's got a great chance to make them. We want him to be aggressive when he gets in pick and roll actions or handoff actions, and then just make the right read. And then he's got to have a faith in that process that if he does that, he's going to be able to create good results for him and his team.
I'd be curious, talking about defense, his defensive plus minus. I'm really curious, when you get into situations where another team gets hot or whatever, do you have in your mind, like, these are my 5 best defensive guys, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, get out there and go? Do you approach it that way, or?
Well, that's the ideal for sure, is to have guys that you can count on being at a high level on defense every game. We have Matt has been a high-level defender pretty much game in and game out, no matter who you put him on. He's done a phenomenal job of that. We have a variety of other guys that are most of the time, very, very dependable on defense. But what we need is for Courtney to do what he did against Xavier Sneed on a night-in, night-out basis. I thought Jace was extremely aggressive and productive for us on the defensive end against Kansas State. Jericho has had some phenomenal moments on the defensive end and some games where he's really put an impact on the game. And at that position, your pick and roll D is probably as important as anything, because you're sprinting out there, and the way that you take away the team's pick and roll actions is huge. Those 4 guys need to lead the way for us. Kamaka's a guy that can be a phenomenal team defender. He's never going to get confused with Kawhi Leonard, as a great defender, but I think he only had 2 points allowed, in our last game against Kansas State. So he just got to be the best version of him. Some of our younger guys continuing to move forward and, get a little bit better, a little bit sturdier. I thought Kai Jones played really, really hard on defense in the second half. And he has that capability. You saw with the play we got switched out on Sneed, and he just looked like he's playing with an aggressiveness and a mindset to him. So That's what we're trying to create and promote. But absolutely, the ideal is to have 5 that okay, hey, we can put this group in a game and they can really lock the other team down.
And just to clarify, would you say it's Matt and then everyone else is grouped up? There is a gap between what Matt has done from a consistency basis.
There is, yeah, there is for sure, and that's not necessarily a talent thing. Although I think Matt is very defensively talented. He can get down in stance. He can move his feet. I mean, the way that he stayed in front of Jara in the second half I thought was extremely impressive. But we have other guys that are very capable of it as well. It requires a mindset of this is who I am. And, I think Matt is there. I think we've had some guys make some real progress with it, but we need some of those guys to step forward another step or two to join him.
Court need to be relegated to the bench, and then on Friday revealed to us that he sent out a group text message to the team that they were very receptive to it. What's that say about Court and the accountability and the player-led team-type things for him to do that, to get him going?
Yeah, I mean, we're a different team when he truly carries himself and plays like a leader. Because he has some real natural leadership qualities to him. But as I learned from Urban Meyer way back when I was working at Florida, the first step in leadership is taking care of your own stuff. He didn't say stuff. But that's that first level is, leading by example, doing the right things on a consistent basis, starting in practice. I thought, one thing that was really impressive about Courtney is when he did get taken out of the starting lineup, he had a very good ability to self-reflect, and he didn't like it. It didn't make him feel good. But if you watched him closely, he rooted for his teammates, at the start of the game when he was typically before that in the game. And, he had a mindset of, I need to be better. And I think that's really helped him, again, starting in practice, be better. And I thought the way, again, he handled, I told him this yesterday, the way he handled Wednesday night, from us losing to Oklahoma, that game ended, the humility he had and the ability to self-reflect and think and say, what do I need to do better? How can I help my teammates better? All the way up through the Kansas State game. I think that said a lot. Now, that requires a lot of energy. That's the thing from that we all, as coaches, understand, and we're really working to get our guys to understand it. Yeah, there's a cost. There is definitely a lot that's required to do that and be that. But there's no other way. It takes what it takes, and I think he's, learning that as we go in his sophomore year.
Is he starting to understand that it's okay sometimes just to put your head down and try to get in the paint? I mean, he had the 8 assists against Kansas State.
Yep.
It wasn't the cleanest game for him offensively, but just by him attacking, it just kind of opens everything up for everybody.
No, we need him in attack mode. He's, I think, a lot of times earlier in the year been in a little bit of a probing mode, which is somewhat how his game is anyway. He's good at kind of probing and seeing what's there, but there's other times where that thing gets thrown to you, you got to be 1,000% ready to shoot. And I thought he did that better against Kansas State. And then there's times where when it is a closeout and there's space on the floor that's been created through cutting and spacing, now we need you to drive and attack, because Kansas State, the teams that play that way, they're really good at just making you pass it around the perimeter if you're not aggressive. And I thought he did a nice job of getting downhill. Now we need to keep getting him better at making that right decision. When he gets down to the block, does he get to 2 feet, show the ball, step through? Does he keep his dribble? Does he shoot a floater? We definitely have to continue to improve him in those areas.
2 last ones, please.
1,800 career school wins. Did y'all sign the game ball coach? Is it going to the Hall of Fame?
That's a lot of wins. It's just exciting to be, part of that. And I think, we all, as coaches, and particularly players, because they're so young, we get caught up in, where we are in the moment and, just trying to win the next game. But I think the biggest thing that it says to me is You know, how many people have been a part of all those wins, you know, over the course of the history of this program. And, you know, I think for our guys, the thing that's important for us to communicate to them is, hey, you're representing those guys. And the way that you go out there on the court, the way you carry yourself off the court is critical, because there's a bunch of people that went into winning those 1,800 games, and now it's been entrusted to us as a group to go win the next game. You know, don't worry about, you know, the next however many, just worry about the next game that's directly in front of you.
Coach Scott had mentioned a minute ago that Chris Clack is getting his jersey retired at Anderson
Yep.
High School. How important is it for the university in town to be able to have kind of that lineage of really good local players coming into that program, whether it's Clack to, you know, to Brad Buckman, to Jared Allen, to now Will Baker?
Well, I actually got a chance to go to Jarrett's high school jersey retirement last month, and it was really, really emotional for me just to see a guy who, you know, if he was still in college, would be a senior, but obviously is already having great success in the NBA, and just, wow, like, this is how it's supposed to work. You go to high school, and there's a growth process there, and you build relationships there, and there's people that help you get better. Then you go to college, and regardless of how long you're there, you know, you should really, really grow during that time, and then you go do great things, whether it's in the NBA on the court or whether it's off the court. And so it's pretty cool that Chris Clack is getting honored in a similar way. You know, I remember actually as a high school kid, because I believe he and I are the same, you know, we graduated from high school the same year. I remember seeing him play in the McDonald's All-American game, or seeing highlights of it. I don't know if I saw the actual game, but I remember thinking, wow, like, this guy is incredible. His athleticism and his feel for the game, and just the ferocity with which he attacks the basket and the way he plays. So it's, you know, it's really, really well-deserved for him to get his jersey retired. And, you know, I'm grateful of him, because as a guy who's local here, get a chance to every once in a while spend some time around him when he's around. And, you know, he has a real pride in, you know, what he did here, and, you know, who he was as a player and the teams that he was part of. And that's something that, you know, that's what we want in our guys. So happy for him that he's getting that honor.
Real quick, with this game being on ESPN Plus, I'm curious, how did Bowlesby pitch all these package of games to you guys as coaches?
Well, there's a certain number of games that are on is it ESPN Plus, Scott? That are on ESPN Plus. We actually, I think, have the least because of Longhorn Network. But you know, the way it was pitched is this is the wave of the future. You know, young people are more and more consuming whether it's sports or other entertainment on their phones or other, you know, smart devices. And that means they're doing it less and less on TV, on cable. So it's one of those things that, you know, as it was explained to us by the TV folks, that, you know, in 10 years, you're going to want to be on this. You know, as coaches, we're not experts on that kind of stuff, but you know, our league works really, really hard to put our teams in the best position to have great exposure. So that's how it was pitched to us.
Cool.